You begin your life as something very simple, a tiny egg, no bigger than a pinhead, drifting through the ocean currents. Your mother didn't stick around to watch you hatch. She laid you along with thousands of your siblings in a long, gelatinous ribbon that floats like a ghostly banner through the water. Some of these ribbons stretch for meters, packed with eggs that look like tiny pearls strung together by invisible thread. Your mother's job was done the moment she released you into the current. She didn't care if you survived, and she certainly didn't care if you'd find food or shelter. That's not how this works. The ocean is your nursery, but it's not a gentle one. While you're still developing inside your transparent shell, predators are already hunting. Fish with mouths like vacuum cleaners sweep through the water, gulping down entire sections of egg ribbons without a second thought. Jellyfish drift past, their tentacles brushing against your siblings and dissolving them instantly. Even other sea slugs, creatures just like what you'll become, tear through the ribbon, eating eggs like candy. You're not safe just because you're unborn. In fact, you might be more vulnerable now than you'll ever be again, but somehow you make it. After a few weeks of floating helplessly in your shell, something shifts. Your body has developed enough to break free. You push against the membrane, and it splits open like a soap bubble. For the first time, you taste seawater. For the first time, you feel the current pulling at your tiny body. You're alive, but you're also completely on your own. At first, you don't look like much. You're basically a transparent blob with a few bumps that will eventually become your deadly appendages. You can't hunt yet, can't defend yourself, can't even control where you're going. The current carries you wherever it wants, and you just drift along, hoping you don't float into something that wants to eat you. Your only advantage is your size. You're so small that most predators don't even notice you're there. You're like a speck of living glass, nearly invisible against the endless blue. Food is your first problem. You can't catch fish or tear apart jellyfish like the adults can. Instead, you feed on microscopic plankton that float around you like underwater snow. You open your tiny mouth and let the current wash food directly into your stomach. It's not glamorous, but it keeps you alive. Each meal makes you a little bigger, a little stronger, a little more capable of surviving what's coming next. As days pass, your body starts to change. Those bumps on your sides begin to stretch and flatten, forming the wing-like appendages that will define your species. Your skin develops its first hints of color, faint blue lines that will eventually become your signature lightning pattern. Your head becomes more distinct, and your mouth grows larger, preparing for the day when you'll need to bite through something tougher than plankton. But growth means visibility, and visibility means danger. You're still too small to fight back against most threats, but you're no longer invisible. Small fish that ignored you before now see you as a potential snack. Jellyfish that once drifted past now veer toward you, sensing something worth investigating. Your survival depends on staying hidden, moving carefully, and hoping your luck holds out just a little longer. The ocean is not kind to creatures like you. Every current could carry you into the mouth of a predator. Every shadow could hide something that wants to eat you. Even the water itself can be dangerous. Too warm, and you'll overheat. Too cold, and you'll slow down until you're essentially paralyzed. You have no control over where you go, no way to escape when danger approaches. You're at the mercy of forces so much larger than yourself that you can't even comprehend them. Yet somehow, you keep growing. Your appendages become more defined, stretching out like delicate fingers. Your coloration deepens, and for the first time, you start to look like the creature you're destined to become. Your mouth develops small, sharp teeth. Nothing impressive yet, but enough to handle slightly larger prey. You graduate from pure plankton to tiny larvae and microscopic crustaceans. Each meal is a victory, each day of survival a small miracle. Then something changes. You encounter your first jellyfish, not as a threat, but as a meal. It's small, barely larger than you are, and its tentacles are short and weak, but it's still dangerous. Those tentacles carry venom that could paralyze you if you make a mistake. This is your first real hunt, your first test of whether you have what it takes to survive as a blue sea dragon. You approach carefully, instinctively knowing that timing is everything. The jellyfish drifts through the water, its bell pulsing slowly as it moves. It hasn't noticed you yet, and that's your advantage. You position yourself above it, waiting for the perfect moment. Then you strike. Your mouth clamps down on the jellyfish's bell, and immediately you taste something new, something that will change everything about how you live. The jellyfish's venom flows into your system, but instead of poisoning you, your body does something incredible. It absorbs the venom, processes it, and stores it in specialized cells throughout your skin. This is your superpower, your evolutionary ace in the hole. You don't just eat venomous creatures. You steal their weapons and make them your own. With every toxic meal, you become more dangerous, more capable of defending yourself against the ocean's endless threats. But eating your first jellyfish is just the beginning. Your body is changing rapidly now, growing larger and more complex with each passing day. Your appendages stretch longer, developing the feathery extensions that will help you stay afloat. Your coloration becomes more vibrant, the blue lines spreading across your silver body like veins of liquid lightning. You're starting to look like the apex predator you're destined to become. The ocean around you is vast and largely empty, but it's not silent. There are sounds everywhere, the distant calls of whales, the clicking of dolphins, the subtle vibrations of fish swimming in schools. You're learning to interpret these sounds, to understand what they mean for your survival. A sudden splash might mean a seabird diving for fish, creating ripples that could carry you toward food or danger. The low rumble of a ship's engine warns you of massive metal objects moving through your world, stirring up currents that could scatter you far from your hunting grounds. As you grow stronger, you start to understand your place in this underwater ecosystem. You're not at the bottom of the food chain anymore, but you're not at the top either. You're something in between, a creature that preys on some things while remaining vulnerable to others. It's a delicate balance, and maintaining it requires constant vigilance. Your hunting skills improve with each encounter. You learn to read the movements of your prey, to anticipate where they'll be rather than where they are. You discover that jellyfish are easier to catch when they're feeding, distracted by their own hunt for plankton. You realize that approaching from below often works better than attacking from above, because most creatures expect danger to come from overhead. But perhaps most importantly, you learn about the surface. The blue sea dragon doesn't live in the deep ocean like most sea creatures. You're a surface dweller, spending your entire life in the top few meters of water where sunlight still penetrates. This is both an advantage and a curse. The surface is where most of the food is, where the currents are strongest, where life is most abundant, but it's also where you're most exposed, most vulnerable to threats from above and below. You develop a unique way of floating that keeps you perfectly positioned at the surface. Your gas-filled stomach acts like a natural balloon, providing buoyancy, while your appendages spread out like wings to maximize your surface area. You float upside down, your silver belly reflecting the sky above, while your blue back blends with the water below. It's a form of camouflage that works from both directions. Birds looking down see sky, while fish looking up see ocean. This positioning also gives you access to a food source that most sea creatures can't reach, the Portuguese man-o'-war. These aren't actually jellyfish, despite their appearance. They're siphonophores, colonial organisms that float at the surface with their venomous tentacles trailing below. They're among the most dangerous creatures in the ocean, capable of delivering stings that can kill fish instantly and leave humans writhing in agony. For most sea creatures, the man-o'-war is something to avoid at all costs. For you, it's a delicacy. Your first encounter with one is both terrifying and exhilarating. The creature is massive compared to you, its translucent blue body gleaming like a living jewel on the surface. Its tentacles stretch down into the depths, swaying with the current like deadly ribbons. You know instinctively that this is what you're meant to hunt, what your entire evolutionary history has prepared you for. But you're not ready yet. You're still too small, too inexperienced. A single brush against those tentacles could end your life before you even realize what's happening. So you follow at a distance, learning, watching, waiting for the day when you'll be strong enough to take on such formidable prey. That day is coming sooner than you think. Your body is changing rapidly, developing the specialized structures you'll need to hunt the ocean's most venomous creatures. Your mouth is growing larger and more powerful, capable of delivering a bite that can penetrate tough jellyfish bells. Your digestive system is adapting to process massive amounts of venom, turning deadly toxins into your own personal arsenal. Most importantly, your appendages are developing their final form. The finger-like projections are becoming more elaborate, branching into feathery structures that maximize your surface area. These aren't just for floating, they're weapons. Each appendage contains clusters of cells called cnidicites, borrowed from the jellyfish you've eaten. These cells can fire microscopic harpoons loaded with venom, turning your entire body into a living minefield. The transformation is exhausting. Your body is using enormous amounts of energy to grow and develop these complex structures. You need to eat constantly, hunting smaller prey while you build up the strength to tackle bigger challenges. Every meal brings you closer to your final form, closer to becoming one of the ocean's most beautiful and deadly predators. But growth also brings new dangers. As you become larger and more colorful, you attract more attention from potential predators. Fish that once ignored you now see you as a worthwhile target. Seabirds diving for fish sometimes mistake you for something edible, forcing you to dodge attacks from above. Even other blue sea dragons pose a threat. Cannibalism is common among your species, and a larger individual won't hesitate to eat a smaller one. The ocean is testing you constantly, pushing you to your limits, but with each challenge you survive, you become stronger, more capable, more dangerous. You're no longer the helpless larva that drifted at the mercy of the currents. You're becoming something magnificent, something that embodies both the beauty and terror of the open ocean. Your transformation accelerates as you approach what will become your adult size. You're no longer drifting aimlessly through the water. You're hunting with purpose. Your body has developed into something that looks almost alien, like a creature designed by an artist who decided that nature needed more drama. Your 6 appendages spread out like the wings of some underwater butterfly, each one lined with venom-filled cells that can fire at will. Your coloration has deepened into something spectacular, electric blue streaks running along silver skin that catches the light like liquid metal. But being beautiful doesn't make you safe. If anything, it makes you more of a target. Your vibrant colors serve as both camouflage and warning, but they also attract attention from creatures that don't understand what they're looking at. A curious fish might investigate, thinking you're some kind of exotic food. A seabird might dive down, mistaking your silver belly for the flash of a small fish. These encounters rarely end well for the other creature, but they're still dangerous for you. Your first serious hunt changes everything. You've spotted a Portuguese man-o-war drifting nearby, its translucent blue body gleaming at the surface like a living jewel. This is what you've been preparing for, what every meal and every day of growth has been building toward. The man-o-war is massive compared to you, its body easily 10 times your size, with tentacles that can stretch for meters below the surface. Those tentacles are loaded with enough venom to kill a human, but to you, they represent the ultimate prize. You approach carefully, using the current to carry you closer without having to swim directly toward your prey. The man-o-war doesn't see you coming. It has no eyes, no brain, no way to recognize danger. It's just a living balloon filled with gas, drifting wherever the wind and waves take it. But those tentacles are constantly moving, swaying through the water like deadly ribbons. One touch from them could paralyze you instantly. Your strategy is simple, but requires perfect timing. You need to attack the main body while avoiding the tentacles, then eat your way through the creature before it can deploy its defenses. Well, you position yourself above the man-o-war, matching its speed and direction. Then you dive down, mouth open, and bite into the gas-filled body. The man-o-war's body bursts like a balloon, releasing a cloud of stinging cells into the water around you. But instead of fleeing, you push deeper into the creature's body, eating as fast as you can. The venom flows through your system, but your body is ready for it. Your specialized cells absorb the toxins, process them, and store them in your own stinging cells. With every bite, you become more dangerous. The feeding frenzy doesn't last long. Within minutes, you've consumed most of the man-o-war's body, leaving only fragments of tentacle drifting in the water. But those fragments are still deadly to most creatures. You gather them up, eating every piece you can find. Nothing goes to waste when you're building an arsenal of stolen venom. The effects of your meal are immediate and dramatic. Your body swells slightly as it processes the massive amount of venom you've just consumed. Your stinging cells multiply, spreading throughout your appendages like tiny landmines. Your coloration becomes more vibrant, the blue lines on your body glowing with an almost electric intensity. You're not just fed, you're armed. But one man-o-war isn't enough. Your body is designed to hunt these creatures regularly, to maintain a constant supply of fresh venom. As the days pass, you seek out more prey, following the surface currents where these floating predators are most common. Each hunt is different, each requiring a new strategy based on the size and condition of your target. Some man-o-wars are small and easy to overwhelm. Others are massive, with tentacles that stretch so far down that you can't see their ends. These require more patience, more careful planning. You might follow one for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes you have to retreat, realizing that a particular prey is too dangerous even for you. The ocean rewards your patience. You discover that man-o-wars often travel in groups, carried by the same currents and wind patterns. When you find one, others are usually nearby. You learn to hunt systematically, taking the smallest and weakest first, then working your way up to the larger, more dangerous specimens. Each successful hunt makes the next one easier. Your hunting technique becomes more refined with experience. You learn to read the movement of the tentacles to predict where they'll be rather than where they are. You discover that attacking from certain angles reduces your risk of being stung. You develop a preference for man-o-wars that are feeding, distracted by their own hunt for small fish and plankton. But perhaps most importantly, you learn about the surface itself. The boundary between air and water is a unique environment, subject to forces that don't exist in the deep ocean. Wind creates waves that can scatter your prey or carry you away from hunting grounds. Rain changes the salinity of the surface water, affecting how you float and how your prey behaves. Sun and storms alter the temperature, speeding up or slowing down the chemical processes in your body. You become an expert at reading these surface conditions, using them to your advantage. You learn to position yourself upwind from your prey, letting the breeze carry you into striking range. You discover that man-o'-wars are more vulnerable just after storms, when they've been battered by waves and their tentacles are tangled or damaged. You realize that certain weather patterns bring more prey to your hunting grounds. The surface also exposes you to dangers that deep-sea creatures never face. Seabirds are a constant threat, diving down to snatch fish and sometimes grabbing you by mistake. You learn to recognize their shadows, to dive just deep enough to avoid their beaks while staying close enough to the surface to breathe. It's a delicate balance, requiring constant vigilance. Ships present another hazard. These massive metal objects churn through your world, their propellers creating turbulence that can scatter you far from your hunting grounds. Worse, they leave behind pollution, oil, chemicals, and garbage that can poison the water or tangle around your delicate appendages. You learn to avoid the shipping lanes, to recognize the sound of approaching engines long before the ships become visible. But the surface also offers opportunities that deep-sea creatures can't access. Dead fish and other organic matter often float here, providing easy meals when hunting is slow. Floating debris creates shelter where smaller creatures gather, giving you access to alternative prey when man-o'-wars are scarce. The constant mixing of air and water brings nutrients to the surface, supporting the plankton blooms that feed your prey. As you grow larger and more experienced, you begin to understand your role in this surface ecosystem. You're not just a predator, you're a population control mechanism, keeping the numbers of venomous creatures in check. Without predators like you, the ocean's surface would be overrun with man-o'-wars and other dangerous jellies. Your hunting helps maintain the balance that allows other species to thrive. This realization comes with a price. You're no longer just surviving, you're competing. Other blue sea dragons hunt in the same waters, targeting the same prey. Encounters with your own species become more common as you grow larger and venture into prime hunting territory. These meetings are tense, unpredictable affairs that can turn violent without warning. Your first confrontation with another adult blue sea dragon is a test of everything you've learned. The other creature is slightly larger than you, its colors more vibrant, its movements more confident. It's been hunting these waters longer, and it doesn't appreciate your presence. The two of you circle each other warily, appendages spread wide in a display of threat and warning. The fight, when it comes, is unlike anything you've experienced. Both of you are loaded with venom, both capable of delivering stings that could kill most sea creatures instantly. But you're evenly matched, your stolen toxins canceling each other out. The battle becomes a test of skill rather than firepower, a deadly dance where one mistake could mean death. You strike first, darting forward to bite at your opponent's appendages. But the other dragon is ready, twisting away and counterattacking with its own venomous tentacles. The water around you becomes a cloud of stinging cells as both of you deploy your weapons. Neither of you can land a decisive blow, but neither of you can retreat without losing face. The standoff lasts for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. Finally, your opponent makes a mistake, a slight miscalculation that leaves it exposed for just a moment. You don't hesitate. You dart forward, clamping your jaws around one of its appendages and baiting down hard. The other dragon thrashes wildly, trying to shake you off, but you hold on. The taste of your own species is strange, familiar, yet wrong. You're not built to eat other blue sea dragons. Their venom is too similar to your own, their flesh too tough and bitter. But this isn't about feeding, this is about territory, about proving that you belong in these hunting grounds. You hold your grip until your opponent stops struggling, until it acknowledges defeat and retreats into the depths. Victory brings responsibility. These waters are yours now, but you have to defend them. Other dragons will come, drawn by the rich hunting grounds and the abundance of prey. Some will challenge you directly. Others will try to hunt at the edges of your territory, stealing prey and testing your resolve. You must be ready for all of them. The constant vigilance is exhausting. You can't focus entirely on hunting anymore. You have to watch for rivals, patrol your boundaries, and respond to every challenge to your authority. But the rewards are worth it. You have access to the best hunting grounds, the richest concentrations of prey, the safest areas to rest and digest your meals. Your hunting becomes more efficient as you settle into your territory. You learn the patterns of the currents, the places where man-o'-wars are most likely to appear. You develop a mental map of your domain, marking the locations of the best hunting spots and the most dangerous areas. You become a master of your environment, perfectly adapted to life at the surface. But mastery comes with isolation. You rarely encounter other creatures now, except as prey or threats. The ocean around you is vast and largely empty, broken only by the occasional appearance of a man-o'-war or the distant splash of a diving bird. You're the apex predator of your small corner of the sea, but you're also completely alone. The loneliness doesn't bother you at first. You're too busy hunting, too focused on survival to think about companionship. But as the seasons change and your body reaches full maturity, new instincts begin to stir. Something deep in your genetic code is telling you that there's more to life than just hunting and defending territory. There's something else you need to do, something that will determine whether your species survives into the next generation. The urge hits you like a tidal wave, overwhelming every other instinct you've developed. You're no longer content to patrol your territory and hunt man-o'-wars. Something primal is driving you to seek out others of your kind, not to fight them this time, but for something entirely different. Your body is changing again, producing new chemicals, new scents that drift through the water like invisible signals. You don't fully understand what's happening, but you know you have to follow these instincts wherever they lead. You abandon your hunting grounds for the first time in months, drifting with the currents toward areas where other blue sea dragons might gather. The journey is dangerous. You're leaving behind everything familiar, everything safe. But the compulsion is too strong to ignore. Your body is telling you that this is more important than territory, more important than your next meal, more important than anything else you've ever done. The search takes weeks. You follow chemical trails through the water, faint traces of other dragons that might be hours or days old. Sometimes the scent leads nowhere, dispersing into the vast ocean before you can track it to its source. Other times, you find evidence of your species, fragments of prey, disturbed water, the lingering taste of venom in the current, but no actual dragons. The ocean is enormous, and even creatures as distinctive as your kind can disappear into its blue immensity. Then finally, you encounter another dragon. But this one is different from the territorial males you fought before. This one is larger, more robust, with appendages that seem to glow with an inner light. The scent it produces is intoxicating, drawing you closer despite every survival instinct screaming at you to maintain distance. This is what you've been searching for, what your body has been preparing for since you reached maturity. The courtship ritual is unlike anything you've experienced. There's no aggression, no territorial posturing, no threats or displays of dominance. Instead, the two of you drift together in an intricate dance, your appendages intertwining as you spiral through the water. The female, for that's what she is, releases chemicals that make your head spin, that override your normal caution and fear. You're completely vulnerable, completely exposed, but somehow you know you're safe. The mating itself is brief, but intense. Your bodies lock together, sharing more than just genetic material. The venom you've accumulated over months of hunting flows between you, mixing and combining in ways that will influence the next generation. You're not just reproducing, you're passing on your accumulated arsenal, your stolen weapons, your hard-won chemical defenses. The eggs that will result from this union will carry the combined venom of every man o' war both of you have ever eaten. When it's over, the female drifts away without acknowledgement. There's no pair bonding, no shared territory, no cooperation in raising young. She has what she needs from you, and you've fulfilled your biological purpose. Within hours, she'll begin producing eggs, long ribbons of potential life that will drift through the ocean just as you once did. Your genetic contribution will be mixed with those of other males, creating a new generation with unprecedented diversity. You return to your territory changed. The overwhelming urge that drove you to seek out a mate has faded, replaced by a strange emptiness. You resume hunting, but it feels different now. You're no longer building towards something, no longer growing and developing. You've reached the peak of your existence, and now you're simply maintaining it. The realization is both liberating and terrifying. Your hunting becomes more methodical, less driven by hunger than by habit. You've perfected your technique to the point where catching man-o'-wars feels routine. You know exactly how to approach each type of prey, exactly where to bite for maximum effect, exactly how to avoid their defenses. The challenge that once made hunting exciting has largely disappeared, replaced by the grim efficiency of a master predator. But efficiency comes with its own rewards. You're able to hunt larger prey now, massive man-o'-wars that would have been impossible targets when you were younger. Your venom reserves are at their peak, your body perfectly adapted to your environment. You're living proof that evolution can create something both beautiful and deadly, a creature that embodies the ocean's capacity for both wonder and terror. The seasons change around you, but you barely notice. Your surface existence insulates you from many of the cycles that affect deeper-dwelling creatures. The temperature stays relatively constant, the light levels shift only slightly, and your prey remains abundant year-round. You're living in a narrow band of ocean that experiences less variation than almost any other marine environment. Yet changes do occur. Storm seasons bring rougher waters and scattered prey. Calm periods concentrate the man-o'-wars in predictable patterns. Ocean currents shift, carrying different types of prey into your territory. You adapt to these changes automatically, your body and behavior adjusting to maintain your position as the apex predator of your domain. Your territory expands as you become more confident in your abilities. You patrol larger areas, marking your boundaries with scent trails and defending them against increasingly desperate challenges. Younger dragons arrive regularly, drawn by the rich hunting grounds you've claimed. Most retreat after a brief confrontation, recognizing that they're outmatched. Others fight, forcing you to defend your territory with violence that grows more brutal as your venom reserves increase. These battles are different from your earlier conflicts. You're no longer fighting for survival. You're fighting for dominance. Your strikes are calculated to inflict maximum damage, your venom deployment precise and overwhelming. Opponents who might have been evenly matched with you months ago now find themselves completely outclassed. You've become something that other dragons fear, a legend whispered through the chemical signals they use to communicate. But power brings isolation, the very qualities that make you successful as a predator. Your aggression, your territorial nature, your deadly efficiency make you unsuitable for any form of social interaction. You exist in a bubble of violence, surrounded by creatures that either flee from you or die trying to challenge you. Even members of your own species give you a wide berth, recognizing the danger signals your body constantly broadcasts. The loneliness deepens as you age. You begin to understand that your species is fundamentally solitary, that the brief encounter with your mate was an anomaly rather than a glimpse of possible companionship. You're designed to live alone, to hunt alone, to die alone. The ocean around you is vast and beautiful, but it's also empty of meaningful connection. Your hunting grounds become a kingdom of one. You rule over an area of ocean that would take hours to cross, patrolling its boundaries with the dedication of a monarch protecting his realm. Fish flee at your approach. Other predators avoid your territory entirely, and even the man-o'-wars seem to sense your presence and drift away before you can reach them. You've become so successful that you're actually reducing the abundance of prey in your area. The irony isn't lost on you, though you lack the cognitive capacity to fully appreciate it. Your success as a predator is making it harder to find prey. Your dominance of the territory is creating a dead zone where other creatures fear to venture. You're becoming a victim of your own effectiveness, forced to hunt in increasingly marginal areas as your reputation spreads through the ocean's chemical communication network. This forces you to expand your hunting range even further, venturing into areas where other apex predators might challenge you. You encounter larger fish, more aggressive sharks, even the occasional sea turtle that might mistake you for a jellyfish. These encounters are dangerous in new ways, not because the creatures are venomous, but because they're large enough to simply swallow you whole if you make a mistake. Your first encounter with a sea turtle nearly ends in disaster. The massive creature approaches slowly, its ancient eyes focusing on your translucent body with what might be curiosity or hunger. You freeze, knowing that any sudden movement could trigger a feeding response. The turtle's beak could crush you instantly, turning your beautiful, deadly form into nothing more than a small snack. The standoff lasts for what feels like hours. The turtle drifts closer, its massive head moving with glacial slowness. You can see your reflection in its dark eyes, distorted and alien. Then, without warning, it opens its mouth and lunges forward. You barely escape, darting sideways as the beak snaps shut where you were floating moments before. The turtle doesn't pursue. It was just testing, seeing if you were worth the effort. You're not, apparently, and it continues on its way, leaving you shaken but alive. The encounter changes your perspective on your place in the ocean hierarchy. You may be the apex predator of your specific niche, but you're still vulnerable to creatures that operate on a completely different scale. Size matters in the ocean, and despite your deadly venom, you're still just a thumb-sized creature in a world of giants. This realization makes you more cautious, more aware of your surroundings. You begin to pay attention to the larger movements in the ocean, the migrations of whales, the seasonal patterns of fish schools, the territorial disputes of sharks. These creatures don't see you as a threat, but they could easily destroy you through simple carelessness. A whale's tail flick, a shark's feeding frenzy, a school of fish moving through your territory. Any of these could end your life without the participants even noticing. Your hunting becomes more strategic as you learn to work around these larger forces. Mostly, you time your activities to avoid periods when big predators are active in your area. You learn to recognize the warning signs of approaching danger, the subtle changes in water pressure, the distant vibrations, the chemical signals that indicate something massive is moving through your territory. But you also discover opportunities. Large predators often leave behind wounded prey, creatures that are too injured to escape, but not quite dead. These become easy targets for your specialized hunting style. You learn to follow at a safe distance behind shark-feeding frenzies, picking off the casualties that drift away from the main action. You position yourself near whale pods, knowing that their activities often stun or disorient smaller creatures that you can then capture. Your diet diversifies as you become more opportunistic. While man-o'-wars remain your preferred prey, you begin taking advantage of other venomous creatures when they're available. Bluebottles, sea nettles, even the occasional small-box jellyfish become part of your menu. Each species provides different toxins, different chemical weapons to add to your arsenal. You become a living library of marine venoms, a walking or floating encyclopedia of oceanic toxins. The variety in your diet affects your appearance. Your coloration becomes more complex, with new patterns and hues appearing as different venoms interact within your body. The blue lightning streaks that define your species become more intricate, branching into elaborate patterns that seem to shift and change depending on the light. You're becoming a work of art, a living masterpiece painted with stolen poisons. But beauty is dangerous in the ocean. Your increasingly elaborate appearance attracts attention from creatures that might otherwise ignore you. Curious fish approach to investigate, only to discover too late that you're not the harmless jellyfish they thought you were. Seabirds dive down to snatch what they think is a colorful piece of floating debris, only to get a mouthful of venom for their trouble. These encounters are becoming more frequent as you age. Your reputation is spreading through the ocean's complex communication networks, but so is your visibility. You're no longer an anonymous predator hiding in the vast blue. You're a known quantity, a creature that other species have learned to recognize and fear. Some flee at your approach, others challenge you directly, and a few try to use you as a weapon against their own enemies. You witness this last strategy when a small fish, being chased by a larger predator, deliberately swims close to you. The pursuing fish, focused on its prey, doesn't notice you until it's too late. Your automatic defensive response triggers, releasing a cloud of venom that kills the attacker instantly. The small fish escapes, leaving you with an unexpected meal and a new understanding of how other creatures might try to manipulate your presence. This incident makes you more aware of the complex web of relationships that exist in your territory. You're not just a predator, you're a force of nature, a living hazard that other creatures must navigate around. Your presence affects the behavior of every animal in your area, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond your immediate hunting activities. Fish schools change their routes to avoid your territory. Jellyfish drift away when they detect your chemical signature. Even plankton distributions shift as their predators alter their feeding patterns to account for your presence. You're not just living in the ecosystem, you're fundamentally altering it, reshaping the local environment through your mere existence. The responsibility is overwhelming when you consider it, but you don't have the cognitive capacity for such complex thoughts. You simply continue doing what you've always done, hunting, defending your territory, and surviving. The broader implications of your actions are beyond your understanding, irrelevant to your simple but effective existence. Your body begins to show signs of wear as you age. The constant production and storage of venom takes its toll, creating microscopic damage that accumulates over time. Your appendages become less flexible, your movements slightly less precise. You're still deadly, still capable of taking down prey many times your size, but the effortless grace of your younger days is beginning to fade. The changes are subtle at first, a slight hesitation before striking, a marginally slower reaction to threats, a tendency to tire more quickly during long hunts, but they're there, and they're accelerating. Your body is paying the price for a lifetime of processing toxic substances, for maintaining the complex chemical arsenal that makes you so dangerous. You don't understand what's happening to you, but you instinctively adjust your behavior to compensate. You become more selective in your hunting, choosing easier targets and avoiding the most dangerous prey. You rely more on ambush tactics and less on direct confrontation. You're adapting to your limitations, finding new ways to maintain your position as the apex predator of your domain. But adaptation has its limits. You can compensate for reduced speed and flexibility, but you can't stop the fundamental breakdown that's occurring within your body. Your cells are wearing out, your organ systems are beginning to fail, and your immune system is struggling to cope with the constant influx of foreign toxins. You're dying, slowly but inevitably, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. The realization doesn't come as a sudden shock. It's more like a gradual awareness that something fundamental has changed. You're not recovering from hunts as quickly as you used to. Your territory feels larger, harder to patrol effectively. Challenges from younger dragons are becoming more frequent and more difficult to repel. The ocean around you is the same, but you're different, diminished in ways that you can feel but not fully understand. Your hunting becomes less frequent as your energy reserves decline. You spend more time floating motionless at the surface, conserving strength for the encounters that truly matter. The constant vigilance that once defined your existence gives way to a more passive approach to survival. You're still dangerous, still capable of killing any creature that threatens you, but you're no longer the relentless predator you once were. The change doesn't go unnoticed by other creatures in your territory. Younger dragons begin testing your boundaries more aggressively, sensing weakness in your responses. Fish that once fled at your approach now merely alter their course slightly, showing less fear than they did before. Even the man-o'-wars seem to drift more boldly through your hunting grounds, as if they somehow sense that the danger has diminished. You fight back against these challenges with increasing desperation. Each confrontation with a rival dragon becomes a battle for survival rather than a display of dominance. You're forced to use more venom, to take greater risks, to push your failing body beyond its limits. The victories are harder won and less decisive, leaving you exhausted and vulnerable, but you're not going down without a fight. Every instinct you possess is screaming at you to defend your territory, to maintain your position, to prove that you're still the apex predator of this corner of the ocean. You draw on reserves of strength and venom that you didn't know you possessed, fighting with a ferocity born of desperation rather than confidence. The battles take their toll. Each confrontation leaves you weaker, more damaged, less capable of defending yourself in the next encounter. You're caught in a downward spiral, your declining abilities making you more vulnerable to challenges, which in turn accelerate your decline. The ocean that once seemed to bend to your will is now actively working against you, testing your resolve with each passing day. Yet you persist. Something deep in your genetic code refuses to give up, refuses to accept defeat. You continue hunting, continue defending your territory, continue living as if nothing has changed. The alternative, surrender, retreat, acknowledgement of weakness, is simply not an option for a creature like you. You'll fight until the end, no matter how inevitable that end might be. The ocean around you continues its eternal dance, indifferent to your struggle. Currents flow, tides rise and fall, and life continues in all its myriad forms. You're just one small part of this vast system, a single note in an endless symphony of existence. But for now, you're still playing your part, still adding your voice to the chorus of survival that echoes through the depths. Your story is far from over. The final chapters are yet to be written, the ultimate test still to come. But whatever happens next, you'll face it as you've faced everything else, with the deadly grace of a blue sea dragon, beautiful and terrible in equal measure, a living testament to the ocean's capacity for creating perfect predators. Your decline accelerates as the weeks pass. The venom that once flowed through your body like liquid lightning now feels sluggish, contaminated by the breakdown products of your own cellular decay. Your appendages, once graceful as silk ribbons, now move with the stiffness of old leather. The electric blue patterns that made you a living work of art are fading, becoming dull and mottled like paint, left too long in the sun. But the ocean doesn't care about your struggles. It continues its relentless cycle, bringing new challenges with every current. A young male dragon drifts into your territory, his colors vibrant and fresh, his movements quick and confident. He's everything you used to be, hungry, aggressive, and absolutely certain of his own invincibility. He sees your faded glory and interprets it as weakness, which it is. The confrontation is inevitable. You've defended this territory for what feels like a lifetime, and you're not about to surrender it to some upstart who thinks age equals defeat. You spread your appendages in the classic threat display, releasing what venom you can spare into the water around you. The young male pauses, perhaps recognizing that you're still dangerous despite your obvious decline. But he doesn't retreat. When he strikes, it's with the reckless confidence of youth. He darts forward, aiming for your head, probably hoping to end the fight quickly. But you've been in more battles than he's had meals, and experience counts for something. You twist aside at the last moment, letting his momentum carry him past you, then counterattack with a precision born of decades of practice. Your bite finds its mark, but your venom delivery is weak, compromised by your failing systems. The young male shudders, but doesn't die. Instead, he thrashes wildly, his panic making him more dangerous than skill ever could. His appendages lash out randomly, and one of them catches you across the side, tearing through your deteriorating skin like it's made of paper. The pain is immediate and overwhelming. You've been injured before, but your body used to heal quickly, efficiently. Now the wound feels different, deeper, more permanent. You can taste your own fluids mixing with the seawater, and the sensation triggers something primal, something desperate. You're not just fighting for territory anymore. You're fighting for your life. You rally what strength remains, drawing on reserves you thought were long exhausted. Your next attack is pure desperation made manifest, a wild, uncontrolled assault that catches the young male completely off guard. You clamp your jaws around one of his appendages and bite down with everything you have left. This time, your venom finds its target. The young dragon's struggles slow, then stop entirely. His vibrant colors fade as the toxins spread through his system, and within minutes, he's floating motionless in the water. You've won, but victory feels hollow. The effort has cost you more than you can afford, and you know it. The wound in your side continues to leak, and your venom reserves are now critically low. But you're still alive, still in control of your territory. That has to count for something. You begin to feed on your defeated rival, not out of hunger, but out of necessity. Your body needs the nutrients, needs the proteins to repair the damage and replenish your depleted systems. It's a grim meal, tasting of desperation and borrowed time. The feeding takes hours. Your damaged digestive system struggles to process the foreign flesh, and you have to rest frequently to avoid overwhelming your failing organs. Each bite is an effort, each swallow a small victory against the forces trying to shut your body down. You're literally consuming your own species to stay alive, a form of cannibalism that would have disgusted your younger self. When you're finally done, you drift away from the remains, feeling marginally stronger but fundamentally unchanged. The wound in your side has stopped bleeding, but it hasn't healed. Your venom reserves are slightly replenished, but nowhere near their former levels. You've bought yourself time, nothing more. The victory news spreads through the ocean's chemical communication network. Other dragons in the area detect the scent of death and violence, and most give your territory an even wider berth than before. You're still dangerous, still capable of killing challengers, but the cost of victory is becoming prohibitive. Each battle brings you closer to the edge, and there are always more young dragons looking to claim territory. Your hunting becomes increasingly difficult as your condition deteriorates. Man-o-wars that you once caught with ease now present serious challenges. Your reflexes are slower, your aim less precise, your ability to process their venom compromised by your failing systems. You miss strikes that would have been automatic years ago, and when you do connect, the feeding process leaves you exhausted. You begin targeting smaller, weaker prey out of necessity. Juvenile man-o-wars become your primary food source, along with the occasional sea nettle or blue bottle. It's a humbling shift for a creature that once hunted the ocean's most dangerous predators, but pride is a luxury you can no longer afford. Survival trumps dignity every time. The smaller prey provides less venom, which creates a cascading problem. Your defensive capabilities continue to decline, making you more vulnerable to both predators and rivals. Fish that once fled at your approach now investigate you with what seems like curiosity rather than fear. Seabirds dive closer, testing whether you're still a threat worth avoiding. One particularly bold gull actually makes contact, its beak scraping along your back as it attempts to determine if you're food or predator. Your automatic defensive response fires, but the venom discharge is weak, barely enough to irritate the bird. It flies away, squawking in annoyance rather than agony, a clear sign that your reputation is becoming more myth than reality. The incident shakes you more than any battle with another dragon. Birds have always been a threat, but they used to fear you as much as you feared them. Now this balance is shifting, and not in your favor. You're becoming just another piece of floating debris in the bird's eyes, potentially edible rather than certainly dangerous. Your territory begins to shrink as you lose the ability to patrol its full extent. Areas that you once defended fiercely become neutral zones where other creatures can hunt without interference. You retreat to the core of your domain, the richest hunting grounds that you can still defend with your diminished capabilities. It's a strategic withdrawal, but it feels like defeat. The compression of your territory brings new problems. With less area to hunt, you encounter other predators more frequently. Sharks that once avoided your region now pass through regularly, their presence disrupting the delicate ecosystem you've spent years cultivating. Their hunting activities scatter your prey and create disturbances that make your own hunting more difficult. You find yourself sharing space with creatures that would never have dared enter your territory during your prime. A small school of barracuda establishes a temporary hunting ground in what used to be your exclusive domain. Their aggressive feeding drives away many of the jellyfish you depend on, forcing you to venture into more dangerous waters to find food. The irony is bitter. You've spent your entire adult life as an apex predator, shaping the behavior of every creature in your territory. Now you're being shaped by them, forced to adapt to their presence rather than driving them away. The hunter is becoming the hunted, and the transition is neither gradual nor graceful. Your movements become more erratic as you struggle to maintain some semblance of control over your diminishing domain. You dart between hiding spots, trying to avoid the larger predators while still positioning yourself to intercept prey. It's exhausting work that yields diminishing returns, but you have no choice. Stopping means dying, and you're not ready for that yet. Sleep becomes impossible. Your body needs rest to heal and recover, but your territory is no longer safe enough for extended periods of vulnerability. You drift in a state of constant semi-alertness, catching brief moments of rest when the water around you seems temporarily calm. It's not enough, and the sleep deprivation compounds your other problems. Your coordination suffers as exhaustion builds. Simple maneuvers that you once performed without thought now require conscious effort and careful planning. You miscalculate distances, misjudge currents, and fail to anticipate the movements of both prey and predators. Each mistake costs energy you can't spare and increases the danger of future encounters. The mistakes multiply as your condition worsens. You attack a man o' war from the wrong angle and get tangled in its tentacles, receiving multiple stings before you can break free. The venom should have been neutralized by your own defenses, but your compromised immune system allows some of it to take effect. You spend hours floating in a partially paralyzed state, helpless if any predator had chosen that moment to attack. When the paralysis finally wears off, you're weaker than ever. The foreign venom has disrupted your own carefully balanced chemical systems, creating a cascade of failures throughout your body. Your vision blurs intermittently, your motor control becomes even more erratic, and your ability to produce your own venom drops to critical levels. You begin to avoid man-o'-wars entirely, despite them being your primary food source. The risk of another stinging incident is too great, and your body might not survive a second exposure to foreign toxins. This forces you to rely on smaller, less dangerous prey that provides minimal nutrition and virtually no venom for your defenses. The dietary change accelerates your decline. Without regular infusions of stolen venom, your defensive capabilities deteriorate rapidly. Your stinging cells become less potent, your chemical deterrents weaken, and your reputation as a dangerous predator begins to fade from the ocean's collective memory. You're becoming prey yourself, and every creature in the area can sense it. A group of small fish that you've been ignoring as beneath your notice suddenly becomes emboldened. They begin following you, not out of fear, but out of opportunism. They're waiting for you to die, ready to feast on your remains the moment you stop moving. It's a morbid escort that serves as a constant reminder of your mortality. The fish aren't the only ones waiting. You catch glimpses of larger predators lurking at the edges of your vision, shapes that disappear when you turn to look directly at them. They're tracking you, learning your patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The ocean that once seemed to part before your passage now feels like it's closing in around you. Your hunting becomes increasingly desperate as your options dwindle. You attempt to catch prey that you would have considered too dangerous, even in your prime, driven by hunger and the need to replenish your depleted venom stores. Most of these attempts fail, leaving you weaker and more vulnerable than before. The few successes barely offset the energy expended in the hunt. During one particularly reckless attempt to catch a large sea nettle, you become entangled in a piece of floating debris, plastic waste from the human world above. Your weakened appendages can't break free from the synthetic material, and you spend precious hours struggling against the foreign substance. When you finally escape, strips of plastic remain wrapped around your body like synthetic parasites. The plastic interferes with your movement and makes hunting even more difficult. You can't remove it completely, lacking the strength and coordination to manipulate your appendages precisely enough. The debris becomes a permanent burden, a visible sign of your declining capabilities that other creatures can easily recognize. Your territory continues to contract as you lose the ability to defend its boundaries. Other dragons move in to claim the abandoned areas, carving up your former domain like scavengers dividing a carcass. You watch helplessly as your life's work is dismantled, your carefully maintained hunting grounds redistributed among younger, stronger competitors. The psychological impact is as devastating as the physical decline. You've defined yourself as a territorial predator for so long that losing territory feels like losing identity. You're no longer the master of your domain. You're a refugee in your own home, clinging to the last fragments of what once made you powerful. The final insult comes when a dragon you defeated months ago returns to reclaim part of your territory. He's healed from his injuries and learned from his defeat, while you've only grown weaker. The rematch is brief and humiliating. You can barely mount a defense, let alone launch an effective attack. He drives you from the hunting ground without even bothering to finish you off. You're no longer worth the effort. You retreat to the smallest, poorest section of your original territory, a marginal area that no other dragon considers worth claiming. The hunting here is sparse, the currents unpredictable, and the exposure to predators constant. It's a place for desperate creatures, and that's exactly what you've become. But even here, you're not safe. A pack of small sharks discovers your refuge and begins hunting in the area regularly. Their presence makes your already difficult situation nearly impossible. They compete for the same prey you need, and their aggressive hunting style scares away much of what little food remains. You try to coexist with the sharks, timing your hunting to avoid their feeding periods. But your weakened condition makes you slow to react when they appear unexpectedly. During one encounter, you barely escape being caught in their feeding frenzy, a situation that would have been unthinkable during your prime. The near miss leaves you shaken and even more cautious. Your world continues to shrink until you're confined to a tiny patch of ocean barely large enough to contain your own body. You drift in this microscopic territory like a ghost of your former self, occasionally stirring to catch whatever small prey drifts within reach. The electric blue patterns that once made you a work of art have faded to barely visible lines, and your translucent body has become cloudy with age and damage. The end, when it comes, arrives not with the drama of a final battle, but with the quiet persistence of entropy. Your body simply stops working properly, one system failing after another in a cascade of biological collapse. Your venom production ceases entirely, your motor control deteriorates beyond recovery, and your ability to process food shuts down. You drift through your final hours in a state of diminishing awareness, your consciousness fading like the colors on your dying body. The ocean around you continues its eternal dance, indifferent to your passing. Fish swim by without fear, currents carry you wherever they will, and the surface above sparkles with the same light that once illuminated your hunts. In your last moments, you glimpse something that might be another blue sea dragon in the distance, its colors bright and vibrant with youth. It's probably hunting its first man-o-war, experiencing the intoxicating rush of stolen venom for the first time. The sight should fill you with something: nostalgia, regret, satisfaction at the continuation of your species, but you lack the capacity for such complex emotions now. Instead, you simply watch as the young dragon disappears into the blue distance, carrying on the cycle that you're finally leaving behind. Your body begins its final descent, no longer buoyant enough to maintain its position at the surface. As you sink into the depths, you become food for creatures you once considered beneath your notice, your accumulated venom dispersing harmlessly into the vast ocean. The blue sea dragon that was you ceases to exist, but the ocean remembers nothing of your struggles, your victories, or your final defeat. You were magnificent and terrible, beautiful and deadly, but ultimately just another temporary arrangement of matter and energy in an endless sea. Your atoms will be recycled into new forms of life, your stolen venoms will be broken down and dispersed, and your hunting grounds will be claimed by others who will face the same inevitable decline. But somewhere in those hunting grounds, ribbons of eggs are already developing, carrying the genetic legacy of your species into the future. The cycle continues, as it always has and always will, with new dragons hatching to begin their own journeys from helpless larvae to apex predators to fading memories in the ocean's vast blue expanse. Your story ends, but the story of your kind goes on, written in venom and beauty across the surface of an endless sea. Your final weeks become a study in slow-motion collapse. Each day brings new failures, new systems shutting down like lights going out in an abandoned building. Your once perfect buoyancy control becomes erratic, causing you to bob unpredictably at the surface like a broken toy. Sometimes you sink too deep, struggling to return to your hunting zone. Other times you float too high, your damaged gas bladder pushing you partially above the waterline, where seabirds can spot you easily. The plastic debris wrapped around your body has become a death sentence in slow motion. It restricts your movement, creates drag that makes swimming exhausting, and worst of all, it marks you as weak to every predator in the area. The synthetic material has begun to cut into your deteriorating flesh, creating wounds that refuse to heal. Your body's repair mechanisms, compromised by age and toxin overload, can no longer cope with even minor injuries. Your hunting attempts become increasingly pathetic. You spot a small blue bottle drifting nearby, prey that would have been beneath your notice in your prime, but now represents a potential lifeline. You approach carefully, mustering what little coordination remains. Your strike misses entirely, your reflexes too slow to connect with the drifting target. The effort leaves you exhausted, floating motionless as the blue bottle continues its journey, oblivious to your failed attack. A younger dragon appears at the edge of your diminished territory, and for a moment, hope flickers in your failing consciousness. Perhaps this is another potential mate, another chance to pass on your genes before the end. But as the newcomer approaches, you realize with crushing certainty that those days are long past. Your body no longer produces the chemical signals that attract mates. You're beyond reproduction now, beyond any biological purpose except the slow dissolution back into the elements. The young dragon investigates you briefly, perhaps curious about your faded colors and strange plastic adornments. Finding nothing of interest, it moves on without acknowledgement. You're not even worth fighting anymore. The dismissal stings worse than any physical wound. To be ignored by your own species is the ultimate confirmation of your irrelevance. Your awareness begins to fragment as your nervous system starts shutting down. Moments of clarity alternate with periods of confusion where you forget where you are or what you're supposed to be doing. During one lucid interval, you notice that the small fish that have been following you are growing bolder, They're no longer content to wait for your death. They're beginning to nip at your appendages and testing whether you still have the strength to defend yourself. The first bite is almost gentle, a tentative exploration of your trailing edge. You try to respond, to lash out with your venomous tentacles, but nothing happens. Your defensive systems have finally failed completely. The fish, emboldened by your lack of response, takes a larger bite. Others join in, and suddenly you're being consumed alive by creatures you could have killed with a single sting just months ago. The feeding frenzy is mercifully brief. Your body has so little nutritional value left that the fish quickly lose interest, leaving you torn and bleeding, but still technically alive. You drift through the water like a discarded piece of organic debris, your consciousness flickering like a dying flame. The ocean that was once your kingdom now feels infinite and hostile, pressing in from all sides. A large shadow passes overhead, a sea turtle, ancient and indifferent, gliding through your territory as if you don't exist. You remember your encounter with a similar creature years ago, how you barely escaped its massive jaws. Now you lack even the energy to feel fear. If the turtle decided to investigate, you couldn't escape, couldn't fight back, couldn't do anything but accept whatever fate awaited. But the turtle continues on its way, and you're left alone with your deteriorating body and fragmenting mind. Your vision begins to fail, the vibrant blues and silvers of the ocean fading to gray. The electric patterns that once made you a living work of art are now completely invisible, your bioluminescence extinct. You're becoming transparent in more ways than one, fading from the world like a ghost, losing its grip on the physical realm. Your sense of up and down becomes confused as your inner ear fails. You float in random orientations, sometimes upside down, sometimes sideways, no longer able to maintain the precise positioning that kept you at the surface. The currents push you around like a piece of drifting plastic, and perhaps that's what you've become, just another bit of marine debris waiting to decompose. The plastic wrapped around your body has begun to tighten as your flesh shrinks and contracts. What started as an annoyance has become a torture device, cutting deeper with each passing hour. You lack the strength to struggle against it, can only endure as the synthetic material slowly strangles what remains of your life. It's a fitting end, perhaps, killed by the waste products of a species you never encountered, destroyed by creatures that live in a world above the surface you called home. Your final hunt comes almost by accident. A tiny jellyfish larva, barely visible to the naked eye, drifts directly into your mouth. Your feeding reflex triggers automatically, and you swallow without thinking. The minuscule amount of nutrition does nothing to reverse your decline, but for a brief moment, you remember what it felt like to be a predator. The taste of venom, however weak, awakens some deep, cellular memory of power and purpose, but the moment passes, and you're left feeling emptier than before. The contrast between what you were and what you've become is too stark to bear. You were once a master of the surface waters, a creature so perfectly adapted to your environment that you seemed like evolution's masterpiece. Now you're a broken remnant, kept barely alive by biological processes too stubborn to quit. Your body temperature begins to fluctuate wildly as your internal regulation systems fail. The ocean around you feels alternately burning hot and freezing cold, though its temperature hasn't changed. Your perception of reality becomes increasingly unreliable, and you begin to hallucinate. Ghost images of prey swim through your vision, man-o'-wars that aren't there, competitors that exist only in your dying brain's misfiring neurons. During one particularly vivid hallucination, you see your territory as it was in your prime, rich with prey, feared by competitors, ruled with absolute authority. For a moment, You feel young again, powerful again, relevant again. You try to swim toward this phantom kingdom, but your body won't respond. The dream dissolves, leaving you more lost than before. The boundaries between yourself and the ocean begin to blur. Your skin, compromised by age and injury, starts to break down at the molecular level. Seawater seeps into your body cavity, diluting your internal chemistry and accelerating the final breakdown. You're literally dissolving back into the sea that created you, returning your borrowed elements to the vast reservoir from which all life springs. Your consciousness becomes intermittent, flickering in and out like a faulty electrical connection. During the brief moments of awareness, you feel only confusion and a vague sense of loss. You can't remember what you're supposed to be doing, can't recall the skills that once made you a perfect predator. You're becoming nothing, and the process is neither peaceful nor painful. It simply is. A school of small fish approaches, and for a moment, you think they might be coming to feed on you again, but they swim past without interest, and you realize that you no longer register as food to them. You've crossed some invisible threshold where you're neither predator nor prey, neither living nor dead. You exist in a liminal state, a biological ghost haunting the waters where you once reigned supreme. Your appendages begin to separate from your body as the connective tissues finally fail. The beautiful, deadly tentacles that defined your species drift away like discarded ribbons, no longer under your control. You watch them disappear into the blue distance with something that might be sadness if you still had the neurological capacity for complex emotions. The plastic debris that has tortured you for so long finally cuts through the last of your structural integrity. Your body splits open like an overripe fruit, spilling your internal fluids into the surrounding water. The release is almost a relief. The pressure that has been building for days suddenly vanishes, replaced by a strange weightlessness. Your consciousness makes one final attempt to assert itself, like a candle flaring before it dies. For a brief instant, you remember everything. Your birth in the egg ribbon, your first taste of venom, your battles for territory, your brief moment of reproduction, the long decline that led to this moment. The memories cascade through your failing brain like a high-speed movie of your entire existence. Then the cascade stops, the movie ends, and your awareness simply ceases. There's no dramatic final breath, no moment of philosophical acceptance, no peaceful surrender to the inevitable. Your brain stops processing information, your nervous system goes dark, and the complex pattern of chemicals and electrical impulses that was your consciousness disperses into random noise. Your body continues to drift for a while, carried by currents that no longer matter to you. The remaining fish that were following you finally move in to claim their prize, but there's little left worth eating. Most of your mass has already been claimed by decomposition, broken down by bacteria, and dispersed into the water column. Within hours, almost nothing remains of what was once a perfect predator. A few fragments of plastic debris mark the spot where you died, but even these will eventually drift away. The ocean erases all traces of your existence with the same indifference it showed to your life. The currents that carried you to greatness now carry you to oblivion. But your atoms don't disappear. They can't. The carbon that formed your body will become part of other creatures. The nitrogen will feed the plankton that feeds the food chain. The trace metals will cycle through the ecosystem for millions of years. You were borrowed from the ocean, and now you're being returned. Your substance recycled into new forms of life that will face their own struggles for survival. In the hunting grounds you once ruled, life continues without pause. New predators move in to fill the ecological niche you've vacated. Young blue sea dragons drift through the area, beginning their own journeys from helpless larvae to apex predators. They carry your genes, your evolutionary legacy, your species' accumulated adaptations to the challenges of surface life. None of them will remember you specifically. Your kind doesn't mourn its dead or honor its ancestors, but they will live out variations of your story, facing the same challenges you faced, experiencing the same triumphs and failures. Some will die young, others will achieve the dominance you once enjoyed, and a few might even surpass your accomplishments before they too succumb to age and entropy. The cycle continues because it must, because evolution never stops, because the ocean demands constant adaptation from its inhabitants. Your death is not an ending, but a transition, a changing of the guard that has been happening for millions of years. You played your part in the great drama of life, contributing your small chapter to the ongoing story of your species. And somewhere in the vast blue expanse, floating in a ribbon of eggs that will soon hatch, your genetic legacy waits to begin its own journey. The dragons that emerge will carry forward the adaptations that made you successful, refined by countless generations of selection pressure. They will be faster, stronger, more efficient than you were, evolution's answer to the challenges you faced. Your hunting grounds will know new masters, your prey will face new predators, and the eternal dance of predator and prey will continue. The ocean remembers nothing of individual struggles, but it preserves everything that matters. The successful strategies, the effective adaptations, the genetic innovations that allow life to flourish in an environment that seems designed to destroy it. In the end, your story is both unique and universal, both tragic and triumphant. You lived as nature intended, fiercely, beautifully, without compromise or regret. You took what you needed from the ocean and gave back what was required. You were a perfect expression of your species' evolutionary solution to the challenge of survival, and in that perfection, you achieved a kind of immortality. The blue sea dragon that was you is gone, but the blue sea dragon as a concept, as a living strategy for conquering the surface waters, continues. Your life mattered not because it was remembered, but because it was lived fully, completely according to the ancient imperatives encoded in your genes. You were exactly what you were supposed to be, and that is enough. The ocean rolls on, vast and indifferent and magnificent, carrying forward the endless experiment of life in all its myriad forms. Somewhere in its depths, new stories are beginning, new struggles are unfolding, new dragons are being born to continue the eternal dance of survival. Your chapter has ended, but the book goes on, and that is exactly as it should be. But some stories don't follow the typical pattern. Some blue sea dragons face a different kind of ending, one that arrives not through the slow decay of old age, but through the sudden violence that defines ocean life. You might be one of these dragons, living at the peak of your abilities when disaster strikes without warning. You're hunting in your prime territory, your body a masterpiece of electric blue and silver, your venom reserves at maximum capacity. A Portuguese man-o'-war drifts into your domain, and you approach with the confidence of a creature that has never known defeat. This hunt should be routine. You've taken down hundreds of these floating predators, each one adding to your deadly arsenal. But as you position yourself for the killing strike, something massive moves in the water below you. You catch just a glimpse of it, a dark shape rising from the depths with impossible speed. It's a tuna, built like a living torpedo, its muscles designed for explosive acceleration. You've seen them before, always at a distance, always hunting in the deeper waters where you never venture. But this one has been chasing prey toward the surface, and its momentum is carrying it directly into your hunting ground. The collision happens too fast for conscious thought. One moment, you're a perfect predator poised to strike. The next, you're tumbling through the water, your body broken by an impact that came from nowhere. The tuna doesn't even notice what it's hit. You're just another piece of debris in its path, crushed and discarded without a second thought. Your carefully maintained position at the surface is lost, your appendages torn and bleeding, your internal systems shocked beyond recovery. You try to right yourself, to return to your hunting position, but your body won't respond properly. The impact has damaged something fundamental in your nervous system, leaving you unable to coordinate your movements. You drift helplessly, no longer the master of your environment, but just another piece of damaged flotsam carried by the currents. The man-o-war you were hunting continues its journey, oblivious to the drama that just unfolded. Other predators in the area sense your distress and begin to circle, recognizing opportunity when they see it. You're still dangerous. Your venom remains potent, but you can no longer deliver it effectively. You're a broken weapon, deadly but useless. A group of reef fish approaches cautiously, testing your defenses. In your prime, they would never have dared to come this close, but they can sense that something has changed. Your usual warning displays are weak and uncoordinated, more plea than threat. One brave individual darts in and nips at your trailing appendage, then quickly retreats to see if you can retaliate. Your response is pathetic, a sluggish attempt to lash out that misses by meters. The fish immediately recognize that you're no longer a threat, and their caution transforms into aggressive opportunism. Within minutes, you're surrounded by creatures that would normally flee at your approach. They tear at your appendages, stripping away pieces of your body while you float helplessly, still alive but unable to defend yourself. The feeding frenzy attracts larger predators. A small shark appears, drawn by the scent of blood and the commotion of feeding fish. It circles you once, twice, evaluating whether you're worth the effort. You try to make yourself appear dangerous, to summon some last reserve of predatory intimidation, but the shark sees through your bluff immediately. You're prey now, nothing more. The shark's attack is swift and efficient. Its jaws close around your midsection, crushing organs that have functioned perfectly for years. The pain is overwhelming but brief. Your nervous system shuts down almost immediately, overloaded by signals it can't process. Your consciousness flickers like a dying light bulb, awareness coming and going in random bursts. In your final moments, you experience a strange clarity. You understand, in a way that transcends thought, that this is how the ocean works. Violence is random, death is arbitrary, and survival depends as much on luck as skill. You were magnificent, but magnificence means nothing to a tuna-chasing prey. You were perfectly adapted, but adaptation can't prepare you for every possible threat. The shark finishes its meal quickly, consuming what remains of your body with mechanical efficiency. Your accumulated venom, collected over years of careful hunting, disperses harmlessly into the water. Your territory becomes vacant, ready for the next predator brave enough to claim it. The ocean erases your existence as thoroughly as if you never lived at all. But sometimes, death comes even more suddenly, even more arbitrarily. You might be floating peacefully at the surface when a seabird makes a mistake. Gannets are precision hunters, diving from incredible heights to snatch fish from just below the surface. Their eyesight is excellent, their timing perfect, but they're not infallible. Occasionally, they mistake a blue sea dragon for a small fish, especially when the light is wrong or the water is choppy. The gannet's dive is a thing of beauty, a perfectly controlled plummet that turns the bird into a living missile. It hits the water with tremendous force, its beak driving deep beneath the surface, to where it thinks its prey is waiting. But instead of a fish, it finds you. The impact is catastrophic, crushing your delicate body instantly. The bird realizes its mistake immediately, shaking its head in annoyance before taking off again, leaving your remains to sink into the depths. Or perhaps your end comes through the carelessness of your own species. Blue sea dragons are not social creatures, but they sometimes encounter each other in the rich hunting grounds where prey is abundant. These meetings are usually brief and hostile, resolved through displays of dominance rather than actual combat. But occasionally, two dragons of equal size and aggression meet, and neither is willing to back down. The battle that follows is like watching two living weapons try to destroy each other. Both dragons are loaded with stolen venom, both perfectly adapted for killing. They circle each other warily, looking for openings, testing defenses. When they finally engage, the fight is brutal and decisive. Appendages intertwine, venom flows freely, and the water around them becomes a toxic cloud of dissolved poisons. You might be the victor in such an encounter, your superior experience allowing you to outmaneuver a younger challenger. But victory comes at a cost. You've expended most of your venom reserves and suffered significant damage to your appendages. As you attempt to feed on your defeated rival, other predators arrive, drawn by the scent of blood and the chaos of battle. You're too weakened to defend yourself effectively, and what should have been a triumph becomes your destruction. Sometimes, the ocean itself becomes your enemy. Storm systems can create conditions that even surface-adapted creatures like you can't survive. So hurricane-force winds whip the surface into chaos, creating waves that can dash you against floating debris or drive you so deep that you can't return to your hunting zone. The pressure changes associated with severe storms can rupture your gas-filled organs, leaving you unable to maintain proper buoyancy. During one such storm, you find yourself caught in a massive wave that picks you up and hurls you dozens of meters through the air. For a terrifying moment, you're completely out of your element, suspended in the alien environment above the surface. Then you crash back down, hitting the water with enough force to stun you completely. By the time you recover, you're disoriented, injured, and far from any familiar hunting grounds. The storm-driven currents carry you into waters you've never seen before, places where different predators rule and different dangers lurk. You're no longer the apex predator here. You're an intruder in someone else's domain. The local inhabitants don't recognize your warning signals, don't understand that you're dangerous. They investigate you with the casual curiosity of creatures that have never encountered your species before. A large grouper approaches, its massive mouth opening and closing as it evaluates this strange new arrival. You try to warn it off, spreading your appendages and releasing what venom you can spare. But the grouper is unimpressed. It's dealt with local jellyfish before, and you don't look much different to its inexperienced eyes. When it finally decides to investigate more closely, its jaws engulf your entire body before you can react. The grouper's mouth is like a cavern filled with crushing pressure and digestive acids. You struggle desperately, trying to sting your way to freedom, but your venom has little effect on the fish's thick-skinned mouth. The acids begin to break down your tissues almost immediately, and you realize with growing horror that you're being digested alive. Your final moments are spent in darkness, crushed and dissolved by a creature that doesn't even realize it's killed one of the ocean's most perfect predators. But perhaps the cruelest fate of all is to survive your prime only to face a long, slow decline where death becomes a mercy rather than a tragedy. You've lived longer than most of your species, accumulated more venom than any dragon in your territory, and ruled your hunting grounds with absolute authority. But time is the one enemy that no amount of skill or venom can defeat. Your body begins to betray you in subtle ways at first. Your reflexes slow by fractions of seconds. Your venom production decreases slightly. Your appendages become marginally less flexible. These changes are almost imperceptible individually, but they accumulate over time like a compound interest working in reverse. Each small decline makes the next one more likely, creating a cascade of failure that accelerates with each passing day. Your hunting success rate drops as prey that you once caught effortlessly now escape your slowing strikes. You compensate by hunting smaller, easier targets, but this provides less nutrition and less venom to maintain your defenses. The reduction in your chemical arsenal makes you more vulnerable to challenges from younger dragons, forcing you to fight more often to maintain your territory. Each battle takes a greater toll than the last. Your venom reserves, depleted by the constant need to defend yourself, can't replenish as quickly as they once did. Your wounds heal more slowly, leaving you vulnerable for longer periods. Your reputation for invincibility begins to crack, and every predator in the area senses the change. The ocean has a way of detecting weakness, and once that scent is in the water, it draws every opportunist for miles around. You find yourself caught in a death spiral where declining abilities lead to more challenges, which further depletes your resources, which makes you even more vulnerable. The territory you've defended for years begins to shrink as you lose the ability to patrol its full extent. Younger dragons move in to claim the abandoned areas, carving up your domain like scavengers dividing a carcass. The psychological impact is as devastating as the physical decline. You've defined yourself as a territorial predator for so long that losing territory feels like losing your identity. You're no longer the apex predator you once were. You're a faded shadow of your former self, clinging to the remnants of past glory while the ocean moves on without you. Your final days are spent in a tiny fraction of your original territory, hunting prey you would have ignored in your prime. Every meal is a struggle, every day a test of whether you still have the strength to continue. The electric blue patterns that once made you a living work of art fade to pale lines on cloudy skin. Your appendages, once graceful as silk ribbons, move with the stiffness of old leather. The end, when it finally comes, is neither dramatic nor dignified. Your body simply stops working properly, one system failing after another in a cascade of biological collapse. You drift through your final hours in a state of diminishing awareness, your consciousness fading like the colors on your dying body. The ocean around you continues its eternal dance, indifferent to your passing, carrying forward the endless experiment of life in all its myriad forms. Yet even in death, your story serves a purpose. Every failure teaches the next generation what doesn't work. Every success passes on genetic advantages that improve the species. Your atoms will be recycled into new forms of life. Your hunting grounds will train new predators, and your genetic legacy will continue in the dragons that hatch from egg ribbons drifting through the same waters where you once reigned supreme. The ocean remembers nothing of individual struggles, but it preserves everything that matters. Your life was both unique and universal, both tragic and triumphant. You lived as nature intended, fiercely, beautifully, without compromise or regret. You were exactly what you were supposed to be, a perfect expression of your species' evolutionary solution to the challenge of survival. And in the end, perhaps that's enough. The blue sea dragon that was you is gone, but the blue sea dragon as a concept, as a living strategy for conquering the surface waters, continues. Scenes. Your chapter has ended, but the book goes on, written in venom and beauty across the endless expanse of an indifferent but magnificent sea. Your death is not always a solitary affair. Sometimes it becomes part of something larger, more complex, tied to forces beyond your individual existence. The ocean operates on scales that dwarf your tiny world, and occasionally these massive systems intersect with your life in ways that transform your ending into something almost cosmic in scope. Climate shifts alter the currents that have defined your hunting grounds for years. Water temperatures rise by degrees that seem insignificant but prove catastrophic for creatures as specialized as you. Your prey begins migrating to different areas, following temperature gradients and chemical markers that no longer align with your established territory. The Portuguese man-o'-wars that once drifted predictably through your domain now travel routes that bypass your hunting grounds entirely. You follow them, of course. Your body demands the venom they provide, and without it, you're nothing more than a beautiful ornament drifting toward irrelevance. But the new hunting areas expose you to predators you've never encountered, creatures adapted to different conditions, with different strategies for survival. Your usual tactics, refined over years of experience, prove inadequate against opponents that operate by entirely different rules. A school of flying fish explodes from the water nearby, their silver bodies catching the light as they glide above the surface. You've seen this behavior before, but never in your territory. It means something large is hunting below, something fast enough and aggressive enough to drive prey into the air rather than simply catching them in the water. The implications are ominous, but you have little choice except to continue hunting in these unfamiliar waters. The predator reveals itself when it mistakes you for one of the flying fish that didn't quite make it back to the water. A mahi-mahi, built for speed and aggression, rockets toward the surface with its jaws already open. Its attack is perfectly calculated for a fish trying to re-enter the water, but you're not a fish and you're not falling. You're floating exactly where you're supposed to be, which puts you directly in the path of a predator that can't abort its strike. The collision shatters your carefully maintained position and sends you tumbling through the water column. The mahi-mahi realizes its mistake immediately, but the damage is done. Your appendages are tangled and torn. Your internal pressure regulation is compromised, and your ability to maintain surface position is severely impaired. You're not dead, but you're no longer capable of the precise positioning that makes your hunting strategy effective. You struggle to return to the surface, but your damaged buoyancy control makes this nearly impossible. Each attempt to rise is followed by an uncontrolled descent, and the effort exhausts what little energy you have left. The surface, which has been your entire world for your entire adult life, becomes an unreachable goal just meters above your head. You're trapped in a twilight zone between your natural habitat and the deep waters where creatures like you cannot survive. Other dragons would face a quick death in this situation, but your accumulated venom reserves give you a temporary reprieve. Fish that approach you still trigger automatic defensive responses, and your stings remain potent enough to deter most casual predators. But you can't hunt effectively at this depth, can't access the surface prey that your body requires. You're caught in a liminal space, neither fully alive nor completely dead. The starvation process is different for creatures like you. Your body begins consuming its own tissues, breaking down the specialized cells that store stolen venom in a desperate attempt to maintain basic functions. Each day of hunger makes you less dangerous, less capable of defending yourself. The very adaptations that made you a perfect predator become liabilities as your body cannibalizes itself to survive. A curious sea turtle investigates your weakened form, its ancient eyes reflecting an intelligence that spans geological ages. These creatures have seen countless predators rise and fall, countless species adapt and go extinct. To the turtle, you're just another small drama playing out in the endless theater of the ocean. It approaches without fear, recognizing that you no longer pose a threat to anything larger than plankton. The turtle's examination is gentle but thorough. Its massive flippers create currents that push you around like a piece of debris, and you lack the strength to resist. For a moment, you think it might try to eat you, but sea turtles are mostly vegetarian, and you offer nothing it wants. Instead, it simply observes you with the patience of a creature that measures time in decades rather than days. Then it moves on, leaving you alone with your failing body and diminishing prospects. Your descent into the deeper waters continues despite your best efforts to arrest it. The pressure increases with each meter, compressing your gas-filled organs and making it even harder to return to the surface. The light fades from brilliant blue to dim green to an ominous purple-black that speaks of depths where sunlight has never penetrated. You're entering an alien world, as foreign to your kind as the vacuum of space. Strange creatures begin to appear in your peripheral vision, bioluminescent jellies that pulse with their own cold light, fish with enormous eyes adapted to the eternal darkness, predators so bizarre that they seem like hallucinations from a dying brain. These deep-sea inhabitants regard you with the same curiosity you once showed to surface prey, but their interest is purely academic. You're clearly dying, clearly out of place, clearly no threat to anything that lives at these depths. A siphonophore drifts past, its translucent body stretching for meters through the dark water. Under different circumstances, this would be the ultimate prey, a colonial organism packed with the kind of potent venom that could fuel your defenses for months. But you lack the strength to attack, lack the buoyancy to position yourself properly, lack even the basic motor control necessary to coordinate a strike. The siphonophore passes within touching distance, oblivious to your presence, carrying enough stolen power to save your life if only you could access it. The irony is crushing in its completeness. You're surrounded by exactly the kind of prey your species evolved to hunt, but you're too damaged to take advantage of the opportunity. Your body, perfectly adapted for surface hunting, is completely unsuited for the three-dimensional environment of the deep ocean. You're like a master archer who's lost the use of both arms, still possessing all the knowledge and instincts necessary for success, but lacking the physical capability to apply them. Your vision begins to fail as the pressure affects your nervous system. The bioluminescent displays around you become increasingly blurred and distorted, transforming from distinct creatures into abstract patterns of light and shadow. Your sense of orientation disappears entirely, leaving you unable to determine which direction leads toward the surface and salvation. You drift through the darkness like a ghost, neither fully present nor completely absent. A giant isopod scuttles across the seafloor far below, its armored body moving with the mechanical precision of a living machine. These creatures are among the ocean's most successful survivors, unchanged for millions of years, perfectly adapted to their harsh environment. They represent everything you are not: stable, predictable, content with their role in the ecosystem. Your species chose the path of specialization, of perfect adaptation to a narrow niche, and now that choice is proving fatal. The deep sea environment begins to affect your body chemistry in ways that surface pressure never could. Your carefully balanced internal systems, designed to process venom at specific pressure levels, start to malfunction. The toxins you've accumulated over years of hunting become unstable, breaking down into compounds that your body cannot process or eliminate. You're being poisoned by your own success, killed by the very adaptations that once made you invincible. A vampire squid materializes from the darkness, its cape-like arms spread wide as it drifts through the water column. The creature is ancient, primitive, a living fossil that has survived every mass extinction the Earth has experienced. It shows no interest in you, recognizing that you're neither threat nor food. To creatures adapted for this environment, you're just another piece of organic debris falling toward the bottom, no different from the constant rain of dead plankton and discarded shells that feeds the deep-sea ecosystem. Your consciousness begins to fragment as your brain struggles to function under increasing pressure. Memories surface randomly: your first successful hunt, the taste of stolen venom, the electric thrill of territorial victory. But these recollections feel distant, disconnected from your current reality. They belong to a different creature, one that lived in a world of light and motion and possibility. The dragon you've become is something else entirely, a broken shadow drifting toward oblivion. The darkness around you is not empty. It pulses with life forms so alien that they might as well be from another planet. Anglerfish with luminous lures hang motionless in the water, waiting for prey to investigate their false promises of safety. Gulper eels with jaws that can unhinge to impossible proportions patrol the depths like living nightmares. These creatures represent evolution's answer to an environment that seems designed to kill anything that enters it. Your body temperature begins to drop as you descend into waters too cold for your surface-adapted physiology. The chemical reactions that power your cellular functions slow and stutter, creating a cascade of failures throughout your organ systems. Your heart, such as it is, beats irregularly. Your digestive system shuts down completely. Your nervous system fires random signals that create phantom sensations of movement and light. A deep-sea jellyfish approaches, its bell pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seem to communicate in a language you'll never understand. This creature is perfectly adapted to its environment, as comfortable in the crushing depths as you once were at the surface. It represents the path your species did not take, the choice to embrace the deep rather than claim the shallows. For a moment, you wonder what your evolution might have produced if your ancestors had made different decisions millions of years ago. The pressure continues to increase as you sink deeper, compressing your body in ways that surface creatures are never designed to withstand. Your gas-filled organs collapse completely, eliminating any remaining hope of returning to your natural habitat. You're committed to this descent now, carried by forces beyond your control toward a destination you cannot survive. The seafloor, when it finally appears, looks like an alien landscape. Strange formations rise from the sediment, tube worms clustered around thermal vents, bacterial mats that glow with their own light, creatures so bizarre that they challenge the very definition of life. This is a world that exists without sunlight, powered by chemical energy, and adapted to conditions that would instantly kill most surface organisms. Your body settles onto the soft sediment with barely a disturbance. The impact that marks the end of your journey is so gentle that nearby creatures don't even notice your arrival. You're just another piece of marine snow now, another contribution to the organic debris that rains constantly onto the deep sea floor. Your accumulated venom, so potent at the surface, disperses harmlessly into water too cold and pressurized for it to remain stable. The deep-sea scavengers that eventually discover your remains approach with the patience of creatures that have evolved to make the most of every opportunity. They consume you methodically, efficiently, wasting nothing. Your proteins become part of their bodies. Your minerals enrich the sediment. Your energy feeds the complex web of life that thrives in this impossible environment. But even as your individual story ends in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, the cycle continues at the surface where your species belongs. New egg ribbons drift through the currents, carrying the genetic legacy of dragons like you toward their own appointments with destiny. Some will hatch successfully, others will become food for creatures that never leave the surface waters. The ocean makes no promises, offers no guarantees, demands only that life continue in whatever form it can manage. The currents that carried you to your death now carry your dispersed atoms toward new purposes. The carbon that once formed your body will become part of other creatures. The nitrogen will feed the bacterial communities that form the base of the deep-sea food web. You were borrowed from the ocean, and now you're being returned, your substance recycled into forms that can thrive in this alien environment. Your hunting grounds, meanwhile, remain empty of your presence, but not of your influence. The ecological niche you once filled begins to shift as other predators move in to exploit the resources you can no longer claim. The delicate balance you helped maintain through your predation starts to readjust, creating opportunities for some species while eliminating others. The ocean ecosystem is constantly reshaping itself, and your absence becomes just another variable in an equation too complex for any single mind to comprehend. The surface waters where you once reigned continue their eternal dance with the atmosphere above. Wind creates waves, storms generate currents, and the interface between air and water remains as dynamic and dangerous as ever. New blue sea dragons will learn to navigate this environment, to read its moods and exploit its opportunities. Some will succeed beyond your achievements. Others will fail more spectacularly than you could imagine. But all of them will face the same fundamental challenge that defined your existence: how to survive as a small, specialized predator in an environment that offers both infinite opportunity and constant danger. Your species' solution to this challenge, refined over millions of years of evolution, remains as elegant and deadly as ever. The dragons that follow you will carry forward the accumulated wisdom of countless generations, each adding their own small contributions to the vast library of genetic knowledge that makes survival possible. The ocean remembers nothing of your individual struggles, but it preserves everything that matters. Your successful strategies become part of the template that future generations will follow. Your failures serve as warnings, genetic dead ends that help refine the species toward greater efficiency. Your life, however brief and ultimately tragic, adds to the sum total of experience that shapes the future of your kind. And in the vast blue expanse above your final resting place, the dance continues. Man-o'-wars drift through the surface waters, their venomous tentacles trailing behind them like deadly ribbons. They carry the chemical weapons that future dragons will steal and make their own, perpetuating the ancient cycle of predation and adaptation that has shaped both species for millions of years. The sun continues to shine on the surface, creating the temperature gradients and pressure differences that drive the currents your successors will ride to glory or destruction. The wind continues to blow, creating the waves that will challenge their positioning and the storms that will test their survival skills. The fundamental forces that shaped your world remain unchanged, waiting to test each new generation against the same relentless standards that measured your own worth. Your story ends in darkness and pressure and cold, but the story of your species continues in light and motion and endless possibility. The dragons that follow you will face challenges you never imagined and opportunities you never encountered. They will evolve in directions you could never predict, adapting to changes in their environment that will make your world seem quaint and simple by comparison. But they will still be blue sea dragons, still carry the fundamental adaptations that made your success possible, still face the eternal challenge of surviving as surface predators in an ocean that shows no mercy to the weak or unprepared. Your genetic legacy will flow through their veins, your evolutionary wisdom will guide their instincts, and your species' accumulated knowledge will inform their responses to whatever dangers await them. The cycle of life and death, predation and adaptation, success and failure that defined your existence will continue long after your atoms have been scattered across the ocean floor. New stories will be written in venom and beauty. New legends will be born in the endless blue expanse where your kind makes its home. The ocean will test each new generation as thoroughly as it tested you, and some will prove worthy of the challenges, while others will join you in the darkness below. But that is as it should be. The ocean demands perfection from its inhabitants, and those who cannot meet its standards are quickly eliminated. Your life was a test, and while you ultimately failed that test, you did so with a dignity and grace that honored your species. You lived as evolution intended, fought as your instincts demanded, and died as the ocean required. In the end, perhaps that is the only immortality any creature can hope to achieve. The surface waters continue their eternal dance, carrying forward the endless experiment of life in all its magnificent and terrible forms. Somewhere in their depths, new dragons are learning to hunt, to fight, to survive against odds that would crush lesser creatures. They are your heirs, your legacy, your gift to the future, and in their success or failure, your own story finds its ultimate meaning. Your final moments stretch into eternity as your consciousness flickers between awareness and void. The crushing weight of the deep ocean presses against your failing body, but somehow you're still clinging to existence by the thinnest of threads. Your nervous system fires its last desperate signals, creating phantom sensations that trick your dying brain into believing you're still at the surface, still hunting, still alive in any meaningful sense. A massive sperm whale passes overhead, its bulk blocking out what little light filters down from the impossible distance above. The creature's sonar clicks echo through the water, a sound so powerful it vibrates through your disintegrating form. For a moment, the whale's echolocation paints a picture of your surroundings in sound waves, the alien landscape of the deep sea floor, the bizarre creatures that call this place home, the scattered remains of countless other surface dwellers who made the same fatal journey you're completing now. The whale moves on without acknowledging your presence. To a creature of such immense size and ancient wisdom, you're less than insignificant, just another speck of organic matter drifting toward the bottom. Its passage creates currents that tumble your body across the seafloor, rolling you through sediments that contain the compressed remains of millions of years of marine life. You're becoming part of this geological record now, another thin layer in that endless accumulation of oceanic history. Your venom sacs, those specialized organs that once made you the terror of the surface waters, finally rupture completely. The toxic cocktail you've spent your entire life accumulating spills into the surrounding water. But at these depths and pressures, the carefully balanced chemistry becomes unstable almost immediately. The poisons that could once kill creatures 100 times your size break down into harmless compounds, dispersing into the water column like dissolved sugar. Your deadliest weapons become nothing more than trace elements feeding the bacterial communities that thrive in this harsh environment. A deep-sea amphipod, no bigger than your smallest appendage, approaches your remains with the fearless curiosity, of a creature that has never known surface predators. It investigates your fading bioluminescent patterns with tiny sensory organs, trying to determine if you represent food or threat. Finding neither, it moves on to more promising opportunities. You've fallen so far from your apex predator status that even microscopic scavengers find you unworthy of attention. The bacteria arrive before larger decomposers, drawn by the chemical signals of cellular breakdown. They begin their work immediately, converting your complex proteins into simpler compounds that can feed the deep-sea ecosystem. This process is neither cruel nor kind. It simply is the fundamental recycling that keeps the ocean's nutrient cycles functioning. Your body becomes a temporary oasis of nutrition in an environment where every calorie is precious, every organic molecule fought over by creatures adapted to survive on the barest minimum. Your consciousness makes one final attempt to assert itself, like a dying star's last brilliant flare before collapsing into darkness. For an instant that feels like eternity, you remember everything with perfect clarity. The taste of your first venom, the thrill of territorial conquest, the brief moment of reproductive success that justified your entire existence. But these memories belong to a creature that lived in a world of light and motion and purpose. The thing you've become has no use for such recollections. Then the flare dies, the memories fade, and your awareness simply stops. There's no dramatic moment of transition, no philosophical acceptance of mortality, no peaceful surrender to the inevitable. Your brain ceases to function, your nervous system goes dark, and the complex pattern of electrical activity that was your consciousness dissolves into random noise. The blue sea dragon that was you becomes nothing more than a collection of organic molecules waiting to be redistributed throughout the ecosystem. But your atoms don't disappear. They never could. The same carbon that formed your beautiful, deadly body will become part of the tube worms that cluster around thermal vents, feeding the bizarre communities that thrive on chemical energy rather than sunlight. The nitrogen that once powered your cellular functions will nourish the bacterial mats that form the foundation of deep-sea food webs. The trace metals that helped your venom production will cycle through the ecosystem for millions of years, eventually making their way back to the surface to be incorporated into new generations of predators. Your phosphorus will strengthen the shells of creatures you never knew existed. Your sulfur will power the chemosynthetic bacteria that create life from toxic chemicals. Your calcium will build the skeletons of deep-sea corals that construct entire ecosystems in the eternal darkness. You were borrowed from the ocean, assembled from elements that had been cycling through countless other forms of life for billions of years, and now you're being returned to continue that endless journey. The seafloor, where your remains settle, has seen this process countless times before. It's littered with the remnants of surface dwellers who made similar journeys. The shells of pteropods that once danced through sunlit waters, the bones of fish that ruled their own small territories, the carapaces of crustaceans that thought themselves invincible. All of them fell to the same fate that claimed you, victims of an ocean that shows no mercy to those who venture beyond their adapted limits. Yet even in this graveyard of surface ambitions, life persists. The creatures that call these depths home have evolved extraordinary adaptations to survive in conditions that would instantly kill most organisms. They represent alternative solutions to the challenge of existence, proof that life finds a way to thrive even in the most impossible environments. Your death feeds their success, your failure nourishes their survival. A deep-sea cucumber approaches your remains with the patient determination of a creature that has learned to make the most of every opportunity. These animals are living recycling machines, processing organic debris and extracting every possible nutrient from the constant rain of death that falls from above. To the cucumber, you're just another windfall, a temporary boost to its normally sparse diet. It begins the slow process of consumption, taking you apart molecule by molecule with the methodical efficiency of millions of years of evolution. The consumption process will take weeks, maybe months. Deep-sea creatures operate on a different timescale than their surface counterparts, their metabolism slowed by cold and pressure to a pace that surface dwellers would find agonizing. But they're patient, these bottom feeders, knowing that the ocean will eventually provide what they need to survive. Your body represents a feast by their standards, enough nutrition to sustain several creatures through the lean times that define life in the abyss. As your physical form disappears into the deep-sea food web, something else begins to happen far above. The ecological niche you once occupied starts to shift and change, creating opportunities for other predators while eliminating the pressure your presence once exerted on prey populations. The man-o'-wars you used to hunt begin to reproduce more successfully, their numbers increasing in the absence of their primary predator. This population explosion creates new opportunities for other creatures, setting off a cascade of changes that will ripple through the surface ecosystem for years to come. Other blue sea dragons, meanwhile, begin to explore the hunting grounds you once defended so fiercely. Some are young dragons looking for their first territory. Others are established predators seeking to expand their domains. They carry the same genetic heritage you possessed, the same evolutionary adaptations that made your success possible, but they also bring their own variations, their own unique combinations of traits that might prove even more successful than your own. Such a young dragon, barely past its larval stage, drifts into what was once the heart of your territory. Its colors are brilliant with youth, its movements quick and confident, its venom production at peak efficiency. It has no knowledge of your existence, no awareness that this rich hunting ground was once the domain of a legendary predator. To this newcomer, the area is simply an opportunity waiting to be claimed. The young dragon's first hunt in your former territory is successful. A small Portuguese man-o'-war that provides both nutrition and venom to fuel its growing arsenal. The kill is clean, efficient, executed with the instinctive precision that defines your species. This dragon carries your genetic legacy in its cells, your accumulated evolutionary wisdom in its instincts, your species' solution to the challenge of surface predation in every aspect of its being. But it also carries something new, genetic variations that didn't exist in your generation, mutations that might prove advantageous in a changing ocean environment. The seas are warming, currents are shifting, and new challenges are emerging that will test your species in ways you never experienced. The dragons that follow you will need every possible advantage to survive in this changing world. The cycle continues because it must, because evolution never stops, because the ocean demands constant adaptation from its inhabitants. Your death was not an ending, but a transition, another turn in the endless wheel of predation and adaptation that has shaped marine life for hundreds of millions of years. The surface waters that claimed your life continue to challenge each new generation with the same relentless standards that measured your own worth. Somewhere in the vast blue expanse, floating in ribbons of eggs that bob gently with the current, your genetic legacy waits to begin its own journey. The dragons that will emerge from those eggs carry forward the successful strategies that made your lineage possible, refined by countless generations of selection pressure. They will be faster than you were, more efficient than you imagined possible, better adapted to their environment than you could ever have become. They will also face challenges you never encountered, new predators evolving in response to their success, environmental changes that will test their adaptability, competitors armed with strategies your generation never developed. The ocean is constantly changing, constantly presenting new obstacles and opportunities. Your successors will need to evolve just to maintain their species' position in the surface ecosystem, but they will still be blue sea dragons, still carry the fundamental adaptations that made your success possible, still face the eternal challenge of surviving as specialized predators in an environment that shows no mercy to the weak or unprepared. Your evolutionary wisdom flows through their genetic code. Your accumulated experience guides their instincts. Your species' hard-won knowledge informs their responses to whatever dangers await them. The hunting grounds you once ruled with absolute authority now host a new generation of predators, each one adding their own chapter to the ongoing story of your species. Some will achieve dominance that surpasses your own accomplishments. Others will fail more spectacularly than you ever imagined possible. But all of them will contribute to the genetic library that shapes the future of your kind. The ocean remembers nothing of individual struggles, but it preserves everything that contributes to survival. Your successful hunts become part of the behavioral template that future generations will follow. Your territorial victories add to the accumulated wisdom that helps your species compete for resources. Even your final failure serves a purpose, demonstrating the limits of your lineage's current adaptations and highlighting areas where improvement is needed. Your story was unique. The specific combination of circumstances that shaped your life will never be repeated exactly, but it was also universal, following patterns that have been playing out for millions of years and will continue for millions more. You lived, you hunted, you reproduced, you died. In doing so, you fulfilled the fundamental requirements that evolution demands of every creature. You were exactly what you were supposed to be, and that is enough. The surface waters continue their eternal dance with the atmosphere above, generating the currents and weather patterns that will challenge future generations of your kind. The man-o'-wars continue to drift through these waters, carrying the chemical weapons that future dragons will steal and make their own. The cycle of predation and adaptation that defined your existence continues without pause, indifferent to individual participants, but dependent on their collective efforts. New stories are being written every day in the language of survival and adaptation. New legends are being born in the endless blue expanse where your kind makes its home. The ocean will test each new generation as thoroughly as it tested you, and some will prove worthy of the challenges, while others will join you in whatever fate awaits those who fail the ultimate examination. But that is exactly as it should be. The ocean's standards are absolute, its judgment final, its mercy reserved for those who earn it through perfect adaptation to its demands. Your life was a test of your species' evolutionary solutions, and while you ultimately succumbed to forces beyond your control, you did so with the dignity and grace that defines your kind. You were beautiful and deadly in equal measure, a living testament to the ocean's capacity for creating perfect predators. The blue sea dragon that was you is gone, dissolved into the vast reservoir of matter and energy that powers all oceanic life. But the blue sea dragon, as a concept, as a living strategy for conquering the surface waters, continues to evolve and adapt and surprise. Your genetic contribution to that ongoing experiment will influence countless future generations, each one carrying forward some piece of what made you successful while adding their own innovations to the mix. Your chapter in the Great Book of Evolution has ended, but the book itself continues to be written. New pages are added every day. New characters emerge to face ancient challenges with fresh perspectives. New solutions arise to problems that have plagued your lineage for millennia. The story goes on because it must, because life finds a way to persist, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The ocean that claimed your life continues its patient work of shaping evolution through the simple but merciless process of natural selection. Those who adapt successfully pass on their genes. Those who fail leave no legacy except the knowledge their failure provides. You were part of this process, both beneficiary and victim of the same forces that created your species and will eventually transform it into something unrecognizable. But for now, blue sea dragons still drift through the surface waters with their stolen venom and electric beauty, still hunt the most dangerous prey in their environment, still live and die according to the ancient patterns you helped refine. They are your legacy, your gift to the future, your contribution to the endless experiment of life on Earth. And in their success or failure, your own story finds its ultimate meaning. You are not just an individual struggling for survival. You are a representative of your species, a test case for evolutionary strategies millions of years in the making. Your life contributed data to the vast experiment that will determine whether your kind continues to thrive or eventually joins the countless other species that have vanished into extinction. The verdict is still being written, still being tested in the crucible of oceanic survival. But whatever the outcome, you played your part with the fierce dedication that defines your species. You hunted with precision, fought with courage, lived with intensity, and died with grace. You were exactly what evolution intended you to be, a perfect predator shaped by millions of years of refinement, beautiful and terrible, and utterly committed to the ancient imperatives encoded in your genes. The surface waters roll on, carrying forward the endless dance of life and death that has shaped your world since the oceans first formed. Somewhere in their depths, new dragons are learning the lessons you once mastered, facing the challenges you once conquered, preparing for the tests that will determine their own fate. They are your heirs, your successors, your hope for the future, and in their stories, yet to be written in venom and lightning across the vast blue canvas of the sea, your own legacy will live on. Here you can find the next video. Click on it. Until then, see you soon.